Hello and welcome. Today we're taking a look at everything you need to know about the Greek gift sacrifice. Let's go. Before we begin, special thanks to my student Iris for the tweet giving me the video idea. Even though it was 3 weeks ago, I did not forget. Let's go. What is the Greek gift sacrifice? So the Greek gift sacrifice is a typical attacking pattern on the short castled king, consisting of the moves bishop takes h7 check, followed up by knight g5 check, and finally queen h5. And this usually leads to either a subsequent checkmate or a serious gain of material. Now let's talk about how do you actually get into a position where you could do something like this. So you can see that white has done pretty well in the opening, but how did this begin? So this can come from many openings, but one of the most important things to have is the so-called attacking pawn. So e5, when you push the move e5 as white or the move e4 as black, you will gain the so-called attacking pawn. And the reason it has its own name and everything is because this is a really strong pawn in terms of the kingside attack, simply because it takes out a very big defender of the kingside, which is this knight on f6. So in a lot of positions, your opponent will have a knight on f6 covering the critical h7 square. And as we know from our initial position, this starts with bishop takes h7, which is forced to take with the king. So if we go back here, this begins in the French defense after e5, the win over variation, and after bishop d3, castles right now is the available Greek gift sacrifice. So let's talk about the conditions of when it works and when it doesn't work. In general, the Greek gift sacrifice will succeed under some conditions. So condition number one is that the defender must take the bishop with the king. For example, if there's a knight on f6 or a knight on f8 or something like this, then bishop h7 just runs into knight h7, which is the reason it immediately fails. That's number one. Number two, the attacker has more control over the g5 square. Remember, this is where we put our knight on the second move, so it's very important that we have it defended by something, because otherwise, after bishop h7, king h7, knight g5, they would just take it with the queen, if it weren't for this defending bishop. So that's number two. Make sure you have control over g5 square. Number three is going to be that the knight can move here. Very important. If we don't have that knight, again, the pattern breaks. Number four, the attacker's queen can join the attack, usually on the squares h5 or g4, sometimes even d3. So there's a way to breach these light squares, as we're going to see. Number five, the defender cannot move a piece to safely defend h7 on the next move, or h2 if you're from the black side. So we're going to see this in action, but I just want to name all the conditions first. Number six, the defender cannot easily reorganize his defense. And number seven, if there's a defending bishop on e7, then there must be an attacking pawn on h4. So again, we're going to see this now in variations, but just so you know all the conditions up front. So let's see the variations. So after bishop takes h7, king takes h7, knight g5, we only saw the main variation as an idea, but now let's see it all the way. So after king g8, queen h5, and the problem is that black doesn't have any defensive resources to stop the checkmates. To give a couple of variations, so queen h7 is the checkmate threat right now. They don't have knight f6 because of the attacking pawn. We would just take it and then mate next move. They can set free the f8 square by playing rook e8 to be able to run with the king. But then we have a checkmate by first queen f7, and then we go back. And it's very important that we take out this pawn with check and then come back for the following reason. Because after queen h7, king f8, queen h8, king e7, queen g7, mate. If there was a pawn here, then this wouldn't be checkmate and they could reorganize their defense. But now this is a forced checkmate. So that is the reason why rook e8 fails. And as far as any other resources, there aren't any. So black's only attempt at continuing the game would be to give up the queen and just play without the queen, but now we can just slow down. This was the main variation, but now we have to look at some sidelines. So from the initial position, after bishop takes h7, king takes, knight g5, they don't have to go back and run into this situation. They could try and go forward. So king g6 or king h6. Now king h6 runs into the immediate discovered attack. So we would just play a knight move, which picks up the queen on the next move while they're dealing with the check. and king g6 is the most testing, so we have to remember some variations here, but all you have to keep in mind is that typical continuations against the king g6 variation are the moves queen g4 or h4, sometimes queen d3. So main moves to look out for are h4 and queen g4. Why? Because we want to continue giving checks and put this king in a very uncomfortable situation. So let's take a look at both of these. So sometimes one of them will work, sometimes both, but queen g4, threatening a very important discovery here. And the typical continuation from black side against this is to attack the queen with something, usually the pawn on f5. So these are typical patterns in terms of this is what you're most likely to expect as from the defending side, and this is how you should continue. So after f5, any knight discovery just loses the queen. So even if we take theirs, that's just a queen trade. So we have to go back to g3, again, keeping up the discovery. And this king, unfortunately, doesn't have any great moves. If it goes to the h file somewhere, we just go queen h3. It has to come back to g6 and queen h7 checkmate. So any king moves fail. And if it isn't for the king moves, then this discovery is just devastating. So this would also win for white. Worth mentioning that f4 runs into bishop takes to keep the queen on the discovery. That was the queen g4 continuation, but h4 tends to be even stronger and more forceful. The point being that, again, this king is very much stuck, and h5 is coming basically as a pre-move, whatever black does, forcing the king under the discovered attack, which will usually win the queen or serious material or end up with checkmate. All of that was about the main line, but I just want to show the h-pawn and bishop e7, the last condition. So let's say we had the position h4, bishop e7. This was the initial position. It still works, and the reason for this h-pawn is when the bishop takes the knight, we want to be able to go h takes with a check from the rook. So it's sometimes important that you don't castle instantly if there's a chance of having the Greek gift, simply because the rook on h1 is really powerful in this pattern. So let's see how this works. Bishop takes h7, king has to take, and knight g5. And every other variation is the same. So if they go back, we get the queen here, but the only difference is this capture, at which point we go h takes g, reopening the rook. And now, whichever move they play, we would just go queen h5 with subsequent checkmate. Let's just show this variation because it's instructive. After queen h5, now black has an additional attempt at the defense, which is to make the f7 square available. So pushing the f-pawn. Let's say f5 or f6, doesn't matter. And now against all checks, they would just start to run away. But very important, remember this move, g6. And now the game is officially over. Queen h8 is coming next move. G6 is used to cover the escape square. Now you know when the Greek gift sacrifice works. Let's talk about when it doesn't work. But before we get into that, if you're enjoying the video so far and you like the idea of chess improvement, drop a subscribe down below to see more stuff like this. And also, if you'd like, you can reach out to me for personalized one-on-one coaching so I can help your specific situation. I've been a chess coach for over 5 years now and have helped over 141 people from 27 countries. Yes, I really do keep count. And I'm looking forward to helping you next. Getting back to our topic, the Greek gift sacrifice doesn't work under these conditions. So if a defending piece can defend the h7 square on the second move, then we don't have a way to follow it up. So in this particular case, the knight can come to f6. Let's see how that plays a role. So after bishop h7, king takes, knight g5, king goes back. Now is the important moment, because after the queen h5 move, they could just play knight f6. And after this, we don't have anything. We are just down a piece and losing the game. And again, if we take this initial position and adjust it slightly, now they don't have the knight f6, but they have bishop f5 as a resource. So you have to constantly watch out for how can they defend the h7 again after this queen h5. So let's see here. Bishop h7, king takes, knight g5, king g8, queen h5, and bishop f5. Again, unfortunately, we don't have anything, and they will just be up a piece. And the final typical resource you have to watch out for, so it's not knight f6, it's not bishop f5, here it's something different. Here it's the move queen d3, which a lot of players have blundered in the past. So bishop h7, king takes, knight g5, king g8, queen h5, and now the way to cover this square is queen d3. And now next move, they will just bring it back to safety and be up a piece again. So the typical moves to watch out for against the Greek gift are knight f6, the bishop coming back to h7, or the queen coming back to h7 like this. And that is everything you need to know about the Greek gift sacrifice. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or questions, drop them in the comment section down below, and I'll talk to you very soon. Take it easy.